Hi everybody, I am Ebone Shardae and I am a woman of today positioning myself for tomorrow.
All right guys, we are back with Women of Tomorrow Uncut. This is our segment where we discuss all things mental health. And today I am here with a very, very special friend of mine, Miss Ebone. Tell everybody all of the great things about you, because I know you as my sister girl, my healing partner, my mentor sometimes. Like the list goes on.
We switched the roles.
We switched the roles.
Definitely, because you have had to come and be my healer as well. But I guess in these Atlanta streets, I am known as Ebone Shardae. I am a clarifying strategist and I am also a healing artist. So I basically tie in my wellness practices to assist creatives, founders, thought leaders in defeating overwhelm and creating structure in their business and their life.
That's crazy. And you make it just sound so good. Like just something that we all want to be a part of.
It's done with ease.
I feel like anytime that I talk about you and your amazingness, I literally describe you as like my friend who has perfectly mastered peace. Like that is how I word it. And I'm sure that it's still like an ongoing journey for you. But even from the time that I feel like me and you really, really became like close friends, you've always been that person that has such a healing energy to me, and you have such a way with words. I tell you that all the time. But I'm sure in my experience, anyone who's gotten to a great space where they've accomplished peace, I know that for them to get there, there was a great deal of chaos. So talk to us about what pre-peaceful Ebone looked like. What did life look like for that Ebone?
Oh, she didn't have a filter. She was very reactive. She did not respond. She reacted to a lot of things. And she was just hurt. Well, she didn't feel safe or confident enough to express that pain, you know? So it was a lot of just like lashing out wherever I could. If you press the button, you're gonna get you get what you asked for. Yeah, it's not even just for you. It's actually years of things that I have not, taken the time to, or I had not taken the time to address yet.
How does Ebone now find this safety that you talk about?
It's first within myself. I was looking for it in so many other people. However, I think we all know the saying, like, I'm thinking about Music Soul Child, teach me how to love. You have to teach people how to love you.
Yeah.
But how can I teach you how to love me when I don't even love me yet, when I haven't figured out what that looks like? And to me, a part of love is safety. So I had to navigate learning how to love myself, learning what does safety feel like for me so that I can be vocal about it when it's not present, or so that I can know, okay, what action steps do I need to take to feel safe, to feel at peace? So it was a lot of going really, really deep within and not looking out at everybody else for, can you be my solution?
Yeah. So in your best advice, how do we vocalize what we need from our partners, whether it be romantic partners, if it's just friendships? How do I go about telling people, this is what you do, this is how you interact with me to make me feel safe?
Ooh. I am honestly still working on that.
Or what does it look like in your friendship with me? Like, if I were to do something, or if I have done something that's made you feel unsafe, but what are some of the things, I guess, that you value within our relationship that make you feel safe?
That it is an open door policy. That it is, I can say, hey, I really didn't appreciate this, or next time when we have a situation like this, can we approach it in this manner because it made me feel like X, Y, and Z? And I think before even like getting the words, it's also like having the confidence and the faith that the relationships you've built can withstand you being honest about what your needs are. Like, we all have different needs. We all have different love languages. We all have different ways that we want to be talked to. And it may be that something from my past, while I may have addressed it, is still a trigger for me. And that shouldn't be something that I keep bottled in. So I think, one, trusting that, okay, the relationships I've cultivated, it's a space where I can come and say, hey, this made me feel this way. Can we not handle it like this in the future? You know, and hopefully I receive quality feedback. But, you know, if it's an issue, then it's like, maybe we need to reevaluate this relationship in its entirety.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right now for me, that's practicing in the mirror or calling a friend and being like, hey, I'm going through this situation. Can I just act like you are them and say what I need to say? Like, that actually happened to me yesterday. And my friend was like, she responded, and I was like, why would you say that? She said, well, they might say it. Mm-hmm. So what would you say back if this is what you're met with? So, you know, having those practice rounds can also help too.
We do that a lot with each other, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, I really value the open door policy in our friendship. And I think if I had to pick out like one thing that I feel like both of us are working on at this point is getting this idea out of our head that we're a burden to our friends if we need something or if we're going through something, because me and you are both very like A-type, independent, strong personalities.
I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, we're also people that experience real life in real time, and it hits us real hard. And so when stuff like that happens, you never want to be that friend where like every time I talk to her, this bitch got some shit going on. But I really like, and y'all have to look this up, I sent Ebony this podcast clip by Dr. Raquel Martin. And what was the name of the episode?
It was something about emotions. It was something about,
I think it was like the range of your emotions. Yes. Mm-hmm. But particularly in the podcast, Dr. Raquel Martin talked about how she challenges herself and her clients to not respond with fine when she asks how they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I literally, as soon as she said that, I sent it to you because I was like, we gotta do this. Like, I'm not accepting this from my girl anymore. I love you. And we're not gonna just get on a call and as a way to open up the call, be like, hey girl, what you doing? Nothing. How you doing? I'm fine. How you doing? What does that mean? Mm-hmm. And she really helped me bring that to light. Like, it's natural for us to just say fine when people ask us how we're doing. And if you told me anything other than fine, I probably would be caught off guard and not know how to respond. Mm-hmm. But fine is not a real emotion. And oftentimes, I know even in my experience, if somebody asks me how I'm doing and I say fine, it's a cover-up. It's a cop-out response. Mm-hmm. So I think that everyone should start to challenge themselves, especially in their personal friendships, where when you ask somebody, how are you doing today? If you tell me fine, we're gonna sit here, put a pin in it, and until you can find whatever the emotion is that you're actually experiencing, then we can move forward. But don't tell me fine. Tell me you're happy. Tell me you're excited. Tell me you're disappointed. Mm-hmm. Tell me you're content. Mm-hmm. Give me something that I can work with and I can feed off of. And that also helps me figure out how I want to go with this conversation. Because if I call you and maybe I do need to dump on Ebony right now and you pick up and like, yeah, I'm fine, but in the background, you got all this stuff going on. And then here I go like, girl, let me tell you about my clients, my man, my daddy. And then you like, bitch, I'm not fine. Why are you dumping this on me? How am I supposed to know how to engage with my friend if you won't tell me how you're really feeling in that moment? So I like that we also have those teachable moments with each other where I can say, girl, listen to this, because this is what we got to do moving forward.
I did. I listened to this today and I was like, oh, this is good. I need this. And like, even when people tell me fine or cool, I be like, nah, even like the tone, like I know you can tell when my tone is when I am like, no, not today. Or even yesterday, I was talking to a friend and she was like, so let's search through the feelings. And I was like, well, I think I'm angry. And then I was like, actually, I'm just disappointed. And she was like, okay, that sounds more like what it is. And I was like, oh, so I'm just grateful. And I hope that others can like find friendships where people want to know the truth. Like, I don't want the sugar coated. Like, I'm here actually for the full spectrum of you. And whatever we need to do to dissect that, you know,
that was the one.
Then, you know, as long as we have capacity, and again, like you said, be honest about where you are. Sometimes you may not have the capacity for my full spectrum. Yeah. And I can't hold that against you, but I can be like, you know what, I'm glad my girl told me not today, but maybe tomorrow we can talk about it. You know, let me go journal or let me go back into my toolkit and figure out what else I can utilize in this moment.
I like how you said your friend on a conversation, you said, oh, I think I'm angry, but then you said, no, I'm disappointed. And in that podcast, I'm about to reference Dr. Raquel Martin this entire conversation. Shout out to you, Dr. Raquel. We love you, girl. But in that same episode, or maybe it was another one, but anyways, in her podcast, she talked about how anger is a secondary emotion that too many people try to identify with primarily, and they do it mostly as a defense mechanism. And I'm that person. That's me. And you know this about me. When I am hurt, it is natural for me to want to fight.
Yeah.
I have been like that my whole entire life. And I think I've gotten to a point now where I'm frustrated with consistent disappointment and consistent betrayal of people who I know I've been good to. And so it's natural for me to say, you're my friend, I love you, and you hurt me, so now I want to knock your head the fuck loose. And out of respect for our past friendship, I'm keeping my hands to myself, but I'm angry. But if I'm really being honest with myself and I'm diving deep to like peel back the layers of how I really feel, I'm angry because I feel like I have to defend myself against someone who didn't honor my vulnerability. But deep down, I'm hurt. And I'm not very good at showing when I'm hurt. I don't like that at all. I don't like feeling weak. I don't like feeling seen. I don't like people taking an honest and genuine emotion and potentially throwing it in my face, because I've had people do that to me too, where I've tried to be open and honest and transparent, and they said, look at you, look at that. And I don't like that because my emotions are very real. And if I trust you with it, then just take care of them.
Yeah. Yes.
All of that.
Yes. All of that. I am in agreement. Yes.
So let's stick with this conversation of finding emotion. We know that recently your dad passed, and me and you have conversations a lot where we talk about grief and kind of what that journey is. And I know I consider grief to be like a state of being that consists of all these different emotions. So if you're not an emotionally intellectual person that knows how to identify how you feel, grief can be really overwhelming. But talk to me about your dad.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta say my daddy's whole name. My God, Kamal Ali Hassan.
Ooh.
Yeah, he was a genius. And that's like the number one thing. I'm like, dang, I wish I had your brain. It's like he could remember so many facts and was just like, I can say, we always seek knowledge, sweetheart. We always come up with ideas. We always come up with solutions. And so like that's just been like a driving force for me, especially after his passing. But he was a detective. He was an entrepreneur. He was a servant to his community. So there were just so many elements to him, and it was cool to just be able to experience that. And I think like as I got older, I started to see more of myself in him. And especially like he would always be like, you are my only entrepreneurial child. You're the only one that gets it. So it's just like now his energy is just like my push. And the times where like the grief creeps up, it's just like when I wish he was here to like ask more questions or just to see the direction I'm going in.
Yeah.
You know, just to be like, just to hear I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What did that grief journey look like for you? Because it looks different for everyone. And I feel like when I'm overwhelmed, especially if I think of the many times that I've experienced grief, even if it wasn't particularly related to a loss of someone, if it was just any form of loss, I struggle with that. And my grief has probably looked very toxic and very angry. And we know that it looks different and reflects differently for everyone. So how was that journey for you?
Well, there are stages in grief.
Yeah.
And it's not linear. So you can go back to anger, you can go back to sadness, you can go back to feeling remorseful, or even like joy. Joy is in the process of grief too, or like acceptance. One day I might accept the fact that he's not here, or I like how you're saying, you know, grief doesn't just look like someone dying. I think a lot of people assume that. No, it's any like a form of sudden change or something that you had an expectation to, you know, for it to have this sort of reality and it's been shifted. You grieve that. Or we grieve former versions of ourselves as we, you know, elevate through life. So yeah, it was, in the beginning, it was a lot of anger.
Yeah.
It was a lot of guilt. And it was just like like why us, as far as like me and my siblings and like my dad, like, because it just was so random, you know, like he had a blood cancer, and luckily we were able to, you know, still have him for 3 years past his diagnosis, but it was still like, I watched him from we got the diagnosis to his last day. Like I held his hand as he looked out his window and took his last breath. And it's watching a 6'4", 230-pound man literally shrink inside, like in length and weight, was just like, in the moment you're not thinking about it, but afterwards it was just like, it was just kind of like this montage of everything started playing for me. And being the independent, strong type, you know, I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, I knew it was coming. I can handle it. Let me show up for my brother. Let me make sure my sisters are good. Like, my apartment was open to any and everybody. Like, people were coming to my house every day, you know, and like for my brother, it was coping through substance. But, you know, I made room for that, you know, and I would partake in smoking weed with him. You know, it's like, you want to smoke today? You want to just, you don't want to talk about it? You just want to smoke and watch TV? Cool. Like, because I'm showing up for my brother. I'm doing what I feel is best for him right now. And all of that, that led me to, like, honestly, a mental break. Like, did not know who I was, could not, like, it probably lasted for like 4 days of where I didn't recognize myself. Nobody recognized me. I was not sleeping. Like, I just kept saying I wanted to go to this place called Joy Lake. I was like, I gotta get to Joy Lake. I gotta go to Joy Lake. And then I was like, I gotta see my daddy. But I was losing my mind because I had not given myself the space to grieve. Like, a lot of times we think, oh, you need people huddled around you. And maybe, yes, in some capacity, but also you need some alone time to sit with the stuff and just let it be, let it pour out. And I hadn't done that. So my body and my mind was like, we're going to do it for you. So that was like the beginning of the true grief process. It wasn't immediately after he passed because I didn't give myself that space.
Was there ever a part of your grieving journey where you were angry at your dad? I asked because I have a friend who, I think it was her ex, like a recent ex, who passed while me and her were a lot closer. And I remember at one point she told me that she was mad at him for dying. And we didn't dive too much into it because she was one of those people, like I didn't really know what her barometer was while she was going through grief. And I didn't want to say anything that would trigger her. And people can also give you a lot of secondhand emotions. I don't want you getting mad at me when I'm trying to support you. But she said she was mad at him for dying. And I could never figure out if it was because she's mad that he left her or is she just mad life. I don't know. But do you ever, like, is it relatable to you at all?
Not to me personally, but to my siblings, yes. Like, we were torn as a family of how he should have, I guess, like, responded to his diagnosis. He wanted to go the holistic route versus the blood cancer is multiple myeloma. And it's actually, of course, Black people are disproportionately affected by it. But it's not a lot of research behind it, and he was in the final stage. There are some people who go through chemotherapy, go through radiation, and they beat it. So my older sister was very frustrated that he didn't want to go that route. And so even like navigating that with her, and like when we talk about him now, there have been times where she stated she was angry. But then it always boils back to like, we were just raised to be respectful. You know, you respect what your parent wants to do, and at the end of the day, that's a grown man. So it's definitely a hard pill to swallow. But no, never angry at him. Definitely just angry at like the circumstance. Definitely have asked why, God. Like he was 57. Like that's young. And for me, it was more so just like a why to.
Everything.
Yeah.
Did it ever push you into some sort of like existential crisis? I feel like when 2 years ago, literally right before I started having panic attacks, a good friend of mine from high school passed. And prior to her death, I think I've always been funny about death. It just it does not sit well with me. It gives me a very, very eerie feeling. I just can't do it. But prior to her, I think that I had this false understanding that people only die because they grow old or they get sick. So seeing people around us that are our age and healthy, and you get what I'm saying? Like, it's not like a gang related thing. It's not nothing like that. And to see her pass, it really pushed me into this season where I started to question, why am I here? What does afterlife look like? Is she okay? Is she safe? Like, what is this going to look like for all of us, God forbid, when this day comes? And it freaked me out. I think for like 6 months straight, I just lived in survival mode, always being in my head about what it means to exist and also post-existence.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you ever had some of those thoughts?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely had a thought of like, I kind of wish I could have taken his place. I've had that thought before. And now I think it's more of an anxiety for me because my mom is older. Yeah. And so I'm constantly thinking about her. And because I'm like, I remember when my granny was your age. And now you old, girl. You know, sorry, mommy. But I think that's the biggest thing for me, is like being concerned with her health and like trying to get her to walk more and like eat different things. But yeah, I do get worried of just like, am I gonna get cancer? You know, and like what more could prevent that from happening? Because my dad was very healthy. He like, that's the reason why he wanted to go the holistic route. Like, took his vitamins every day, ate, like went on, you know, raw cleanses and things of that nature, and still got it. Yeah. So that's the fear for me, is like worrying about my mom's age and worrying like, am I just gonna wake up with cancer one day, and how do I navigate that? Yeah.
I think it's crazy you said that. When people talk to me about like, you know, our parents are getting older and, you know, we're gonna have to face that reality one day, it still is not real to me. Like, and I think that my parents, and I'm sure that a lot of people, especially in minority homes, can relate to this, where our parents do a really, really good job of projecting themselves to be like superhuman. And I feel like they're supposed to. When I have kids, I want for my kids to look at me as like, mom is super mom. Nothing breaks mom. We can go to her and we know she got us, you know. But because my parents have done such an exceptional job at that, I've never seen my dad sick a day in my life. My dad is 70 years old. And I've never seen this man with a cold, with a flu.
That's how we were.
Nothing. Yeah. Like, and what's crazy is years ago, when my parents were still married, my dad had a stroke, and we never saw that. And I was very young when this happened, so I didn't really know what it was. But even fast forward, I remember my mom was telling me when he got out of the hospital, she particularly kept him in another side of our house with his nurses because he suffered from memory loss. When he woke up after his stroke, he didn't know who my mom was, and he didn't know that he had kids. And so my mom said she did a really good job of keeping him away from us so that it wouldn't terrify us, and also we wouldn't terrify him. But even thinking of that, I'm like, Daddy? Rufus? Like, and then even with my mom now, like, granted, I've seen her, you know, sick, going through a flu or whatever, but my mom is still the type where if she's sick, if we get sick, she's sniffing that up, and I got to be there for kids. So the idea that my parents could grow sick and unfortunately pass one day doesn't make sense to me, because especially with my dad, like, he stands 10 feet tall to me. Like, so it would never make sense for something to happen to him. I feel like he has 9 lives.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, that's twofold, because I was listening to an Instagram live yesterday. It was really great with her name's Brittany, the Idea Girl, but she has this brand called Not So CEO. It was really good. But she was like, often we hear like you only live once, but you live every day and you die once. So I do think it's good that like you see we get up and we do our best every day. Like, I think that is fair to like show your children, but I do think we do a disservice to ourselves and the generations coming up of not having real conversations. Yeah. Like that could have been a teaching moment for you to say, hey, this is what happens when someone goes through a stroke. This is something that could be a result of that. you know, daddy's not all the way here right now, but that doesn't mean that his love for you has dissipated. You know, like there are ways that we can have these conversations, but we don't always get those resources that give us the strength to have them. Yeah.
What is your advice to anyone right now who's struggling with grief?
Take it one day at a time. I know that might be so lame and cliche, but that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I think for the person going through it, take it one day at a time. And for anyone supporting someone going through grief, just be understanding as possible. Like we don't mean to be out of it. We don't mean to be like, I don't want to be sad randomly. Like there will be times where I'm in my car and a certain song will come on and I will start crying.
Yeah.
And it's just, I can't help that, you know. And before I would like, especially if I was around people, I would try to like, let me suck it up. Let me wipe it off. No, y'all gonna see these tears.
Yeah.
Because I'm sad right now and I miss my daddy. And that's all right. And wherever we going, I'm gonna turn up and I'm gonna smile, but I'm gonna cry right now because that's what I need to do. And as the people who love and support me, just give me that space. Please don't make it a big deal. Now that's just me. Maybe some people want the, you know, the flair and the dramatics, but I'm like, give me a little thigh rub, a little back rub, and let me get through this moment.
Yeah.
And we can keep going because it won't ever be gone.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm thinking about when I get married, like, no woman finna walk me down the aisle, you know, or like, I had to work through like envy of my sister having that. And now the rest of us don't. Like I have another sister who we're the same age. We not getting that. You got to have him at your wedding and we didn't.
Yeah.
He got to meet both of your children. We don't have kids yet. So now I have to show my kid a photo of him.
Yeah.
You know, so it's so many different emotions that go into grief, and I think just taking it one day at a time and allowing yourself to experience it, because when you keep trying to push it down, depress it, you're going to experience a depression, or it may turn into a manic episode. Like it's gonna come out however it needs to. So it's best to just give it that space one day at a time.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit. We know September is Suicide Prevention Month, and we talk a lot about suicide awareness and depression awareness and just mental health in general. Yeah, and I know that both of us have had experience. I'm a 2-time suicide survivor, and could you talk to me about your experience with any sort of ideations or thoughts or anything?
They date back. They date back to 15. That was the first one. I was actually at school in my science classroom. They thought that I wanted to harm someone else. First of all, why would you have a large butcher knife around children? It was a large butcher knife in this back room in my science classroom, and I had gotten very upset, and I was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. And like they found me, like I was like slamming the knife on something. It was something there on this table. And they thought I wanted to harm other people, but I wanted to harm myself. I just was in my brain trying to figure out, how can I do this quickly without it hurting so much? So that was the first time. I actually have not ever told anybody that.
Wow.
So.
Was there anything going on at that time, or do you feel like it was just really a random intrusive thought?
Yeah. I'm a survivor of a lot of things. So I'm also a sexual assault survivor. And the fact that I didn't tell my mom about that until I was in college. So dealing with covering that up, I was at a new school. I had always gone to like charter schools or private schools or very like mixed ethnicity. And I was an APS child. It was all black kids, but I'm sorry, y'all were mean.
Yeah.
Call
it what it is.
And so it was just a hard transition for me. So on top of like having these secrets inside of me and not really having anybody talk to me about sexual health, talk to me about protecting my body, and navigating this new school, I was upset every day and like I live in a single parent household. My mom was working night shifts. So when I would wake up for school, my mom would already be gone to work. When I would get home from school, she's at work. So we would not, we really didn't see each other. I would be at my auntie's house, or I would be at my godmom's house. And so the safety, I did not feel safe to talk to anybody about what I was going through. And so all I had was what I'm seeing on TV and the little bit of internet we had with AOL, wherever I was on the internet doing then, So all I knew was, if you cut your wrist, you'll bleed out. So that's where my mind was at. And then college, I had never faced failure for real. Even though I was going through bullying, straight A student, in the band, ran track, I had my friends, I had my solid friends who helped me through that, who most of us went to college together. But I was in DC, away from home. And even my freshman year, I got into freshman leadership academy, and being from Atlanta was super cool at Howard. So it was I'm a cool girl. I don't have any issues. But I did not get into this organization that I thought I was gung-ho for getting into, and I had helped so many other people. And when I found out that I would get into it, I was like, oh, okay. And it was something that was out of the organization's control, really out of mine as well. And so it was just a really hard pill to swallow. All your friends are out doing different things. Yeah. And you just in your dorm room. And so that was a very lonely experience for me. And my mind was becoming my enemy. My mind was telling me you're not cool, you're not cute, you don't need to be out. And that was the first time I had a panic attack. I was at a party. And I have very photographic memories, so I can put myself back in situations. I remember my friend was like, "Come to this Cinco de Mayo kickback." Kickback. You said it's a kickback. It's just a couple people. I promise you, Jasmine, I walked upstairs to go to the restroom. It felt to me, I came out of the restroom, and the restroom was right off of the stairs. I'm at the top of the stairs. All I see is what felt like a flood of people coming into this house.
It was a rave.
It was turned up. It was turned up, and I could not breathe. I started panicking. And it's people behind me, trying to get down the stairs, and I just couldn't move. And I think somebody literally had to help me move into another room. I had to call a friend because I was in Maryland, so I had to get somebody to come get me because the people I rode with, they turning up in the party. And I'm gonna feel like a burden if I go and say, hey, I don't know what's happening to me. I can't breathe. I'm feeling really anxious. I need to leave. So luckily I had support come to get me, but that was the start of a 6-month-long depression episode. Yeah. And I was just trying to find any way out. I was trying to figure out how to take pills. I was trying to figure out, can I go dive into the pool and not get up? It was a lot of ideation for me. I think the only thing that kept stopping me was I didn't want it to hurt. I didn't want, I was okay, if I get a gun, am I gonna feel it? If I do, I used to I would take a fork to just try to test out what would it feel like. Yeah. Just to feel some sort of, okay, can I handle this before it happens, before it goes all the way through. But yeah, it was a lot of just thinking, how can I get out of this without it being physically painful?
I feel like any person that I've talked to about their experiences with self-harm or any kind of ideations, people always talk about almost how they've tested the waters a little bit to see what that experience would be. And I feel like I have done the same. Now that I'm hearing you speak, and I'm this is actually crazy to me. Yeah. I went through a small season of self-harm in high school, and I don't even remember what it was about or what was going on, but I would hide it through a bunch of bracelets. The bracelets we all used to wear in high school, I would have them things going all the way up my arm because there was markings all the way up my arm. I would walk around the house wearing like long turtleneck sweaters all the time. And of course, like it never raised an eyebrow to my mom because I'm anemic. So she knows I'm always cold. And then I think the last time that I can recall me ever having a really bad attempt, months prior to, I was like drinking like crazy to the point where now I realize I was numbing myself and kind of preparing myself for that moment. So when it actually happened, I don't think that my intention in that moment was to do that. I don't think I realized what I was potentially doing. I think for me in that moment, I just wanted to shut off a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that just seemed like the answer. And fast forward, when my friend broke into my apartment and found me, and the visual that she explained to me, to this day, I'm like, it's embarrassing. And I think that that's one misconception that we have to do away with, is that everyone who experiences these ideations or has these experiences is like proud of it. That's not the case at all. Like, I'm very aware of what happened, and I hold a lot of shame and guilt for it, and more particularly knowing like I'm in a better space now, and to think of what I could have missed out on and the people who I would have really hurt, that's very shameful for me. But yeah,
I had to work through that. I was literally carried out of my dorm and tossed into a car and rushed to the hospital because they didn't know what I had taken. And that was embarrassing. But honestly, it was also like, I just wanted to know somebody cared.
Yeah.
Like that was also a part of it. Like, but it's like how, you know, now that we're older and we're, you know, more emotionally intelligent and we have, you know, resources, is how would they know how would they know how to show up for you? How would they know how, like, the type of love you need if you're not expressing that? If you're just saying, oh, I'm good. Nothing's wrong with me. Like, it turned into like, don't invite Ebony nowhere because she's just gonna say no. Or she's not gonna show up. But y'all don't know I'm not showing up because it's literally crippling for me to leave my room. Like, I could not go to class. I would try to go to class and I would start crying. And I couldn't tell you why.
I can't even imagine dealing with anxiety in college. Like, and going to Spelman, that was a lot of sensory overload every day. So even now, like I mentor people, like I've had mothers that have reached out to me and they're like, can you talk to my daughter? She's in college and she's experiencing panic attacks. I'm like, I experienced mine as a grown adult when I worked from home, thank God. And even then it was a struggle. So I can't imagine, like, if I went through this in school, I would have dropped out. I easily would have had to drop out.
It's hard. Like, I had to write a whole appeal letter for a semester explaining what I went through. Like, I had to go see a neuropsychiatrist, like, and get diagnosed and all the things. And it was like, the silver lining of all of that is, I don't know if I would have gotten into the wellness space if that didn't happen. Like, I went and got, you know, my diagnosis or whatever. I also went to Howard Hospital one day. This doctor did not talk to me for more than 10 minutes and was like, I'm gonna prescribe you Lexapro. And my spirit was just like, I tried to take it for a few days. My mom was like, you know, it takes 30 days to kick in for you to start feeling it. And that just didn't, that was weird to me. And like, to me, you know, and I do think that there are some chemical imbalances in the brain that may need some, you know, medicinal support, pharmaceutical support, whatever you want to call it. But I stopped taking that thing after 3 days. And I went to yoga. And I was the only black girl in my yoga class. It was nothing but old white women. But I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day. That's what I committed to. Like yoga, boxing, working out. When I was depressed, I was in the best shape of my life.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Dude, that's all I could bring myself to do. But yeah, like if I didn't, you know, make that decision for myself, I wouldn't have stepped into being able to, you know, be a guide, a light for other people now.
My experience with being prescribed Lexapro was not good. And just a PSA, this is not to tell anyone to not get the help that you need, whether if it is medicinal, holistic, whatever it is. I have tons of friends that are on Lexapro, Zoloft, whatever it is, and they love it. They swear by it. It was just not it for me. I think that some of my primary symptoms with anxiety and panic attacks, like the blurry vision, heart palpitations, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, all of that stuff, these are also side effects of Lexapro. And so they put me on this pill and they told me the same thing, wait 30 days for you to really see how it works. I stopped taking it after 2 weeks. I called my psychiatrist and I said, this is what I'm experiencing. Before, my vision would be a little blurry and I could still make out, the flower vase in my house or this chair over here. Now I'm on Lexapro, and when my vision goes blurry, I couldn't tell you where my TV is. And she said, okay, just stop taking it. And I said, what do you mean? That response was not what I was expecting. And that's when she told me, it really is kind of like a trial run when we're doing stuff like this. And I'm like, I'm not nobody's guinea pig, so we're not going to trial run no prescription on me. But I also didn't enjoy the process of just having somebody tell me that I have a problem and they gave me a pill for it, because to me, I think that's when it sunk in and it made it very real that I have a problem. And that didn't sit well with me, especially, again, being such an A-type personality and feeling like I'm good, I'm supposed to be okay, especially in the career that I work in where I fix everyone else's problems. I don't have room for me to not be okay. So it made me feel very crazy for a long time, and I was very embarrassed to tell people that was something that where I am on medication for this problem that is clearly out of my control. And then after I was hospitalized, while I was in the hospital, they had to give me so much Xanax because of my heart palpitations. I'm having panic attacks in the middle of the night. My blood pressure is skyrocketing. So it got to a point where they're giving me 4 pills of Xanax a day. And if you know anything about Xanax, that's not the pill you take 4 times a day. So when I got out of the hospital, I was addicted to Xanax. And I didn't even know. This is my first time talking about this, by the way. But yeah, I was addicted to Xanax for a couple months, and my mother was terrified. And God bless her heart, but I can recall a lot of nights where she probably thought I was asleep and I could hear her in my bedroom on the phone with people talking about how worried she was and how literally I would fight my mom about my Xanax when she'd be like, don't take it tonight before you go to sleep. And I'm hollering, screaming, crying at her I have to have my Xanax. And my aunt, who's a traveling nurse, was the one who helped to wean me off of it. But even now I talk to people about playing around with drugs like that, or just making sure that you're being safe and educating yourself. And it really is mostly about knowing your body. I don't even take Tylenol when I have a headache. So obviously me taking something like Xanax, it's gonna really overdo what it's supposed to do. And it was very easy for me to grow an addiction toward it, even when I was afraid to call it an addiction. So if I wouldn't have had a family member who's involved in the medical space who could get me off of that, I don't really know what today would look like, because my Xanax was something that I swore by 3 times a day. I didn't play games with that. I know. I didn't play games with that. But amen, fast forward, I actually officially threw out all of my Xanax 2 months ago. Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's good.
I am proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you. I don't think people realize how much bravery all this takes.
Yeah.
Facing our truths while still navigating the truths that got us to these new truths. That in itself is just a feat. It's an uphill battle sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just have to commend you for that, because our stories, are different and similar in the same way, but it's still I know what that takes. I know what that embarrassment feels like. I know what that dependency feels like if I don't have no other solution. So this is all I can do right now. Yeah. To feel good, to make it through, to shut this shit off that's in my head right now. Yeah.
Amen. You did this guided meditation at my house. Y'all, Ebony is so great. Okay. You did this guided meditation at my house last week. I wrote down some of the guided meditation that you were actually listening to first, but it says, I am heaven on earth, I am peace, I am abundance, I am the universe in the flesh, bless you in your journey of enlightenment. I was in the background like this. How does that make you feel, like when you listen to words like that, especially when you're starting out your day having like so many good affirmations to just kind of like center you, I guess? Like, where does that put you?
Empowered. And it follows me like through my day, through any like moment where it feels like a hiccup, especially when I listen to affirmations. One of them is gonna pop up in my mind and remind me like, I'm always, this too shall pass. Like sometimes I am ready to react, and then I'll have a little affirmation and I'm like, all right, you know, how would our higher self approach this? So I like, yeah, it's just an empowered feeling, and like that's a form of love for me. Like I love myself enough to take a moment and just breathe and fill my own cup up. Like, and I think a lot of people get so worried about meditation and like listening to someone else sort of guide you through breath work. Well, like, am I supposed to be silent? Should I not be thinking anything? This morning when I was meditating, it was so many thoughts. I was typing an email in my head while this woman was.
I really struggle with meditation sometimes because I have 101 tabs up in my head at all times, and I find myself having to restart my meditations over when my brain is doing too much.
You don't have to restart. Just breathe and be like, Sometimes I like literally like move my head like kind of like a swipe.
Like, girl, go on.
Literally like, okay, swipe that out. Let's come back. Or just allow it to flow and see like what's trapped up in here that doesn't need to be in here. And even if it is, I need to send this email. Okay, we'll get to that after this meditation. And you say that to yourself while you're breathing, eyes open, closed, whatever feels comfortable for you. All right. Oh, I need to let that go. Dang, why I'm still thinking about that. Like, you know, like I literally will just, I'm having a conversation with myself. That is a form of mindfulness. You know, like being able to observe your thoughts, being able to speak to yourself. I know some people may still think it's crazy, but it's a sign of genius when you talk to yourself.
Yeah. Amen. Come on, I'm a genius. Listen.
Yes.
Could you walk us through like a pop-up 30-second guided meditation for healing?
Ooh, not you just put me on the spot.
I did, because I want everybody to see how great you are.
Oh, Lord.
Well, I'm ready.
What's our theme?
There has to be a theme. Girl, I don't know.
It don't have to be a theme, but it will be helpful.
We need healing. We've talked about grief. This month is Suicide Prevention Month. Anything in that arena.
Okay. So I need you to sit up straight. We're going to have our feet flat on the ground.
Okay.
You can bring your palms to your thighs. You can clasp them together at your seat, whatever feels good. Now, I like to close my eyes. Or you can bring a soft gaze. It's all about safety. Some people do not feel safe when their eyes are fully closed because that could be from some form of PTSD. So we're always aware of that. And the first thing you want to do before any meditation, any form of breath work, is just take a cleansing breath. And what that is you'll do a deep inhale through your nose, filling up your belly, letting the air rise up through your chest. And then you'll open your mouth and you'll sigh it out. Make a noise. Don't be scared. We're going to do that one more time. We'll inhale deeply, filling up our belly, feeling that air rise up to your chest. Maybe this time it goes up to the crown of your head. And you'll exhale, sigh it out. Then you'll return back to your natural breath. And just check in with yourself for a moment. Maybe this is the first time today that you've actually allowed yourself to take an intentional breath. Maybe a thought pops up. Go ahead and pop that thought bubble. There's no need for it right now. You can smile at yourself. Maybe you move your shoulders a little bit. Get to feeling good. There's no right or wrong way to meditate. It's literally just taking a moment to go within. And then we'll return to our 4-count breath. And this time we're going to inhale for a count of 4. We're going to hold it for a count of 4. And then we'll release it for a count of 4. And something that helps me in doing this is maybe you'll take your index finger and you'll just do a light tap on your thigh, or you'll tap your fingers together if you have your hands clasped in the center of your lap. And you'll begin your inhales to that count of 4, holding the breath at the top. Maybe you start to feel a little lightheaded, that's okay. If you need to take your count down to 3, you do what feels good for your body. You find what is safe for you. You can just continue to find a rhythm here as you breathe. Making sure to fill it from your belly to your chest to the crown of your head as you pause. And then you exhale and release. Wherever you are in your breath, you'll take that for one more round. Finding your count, whether it's a 4 count or a 3 count. Just do a full round of inhaling, holding, and release. And you'll return back to a natural breath. And with your eyes still closed, or maybe with a soft gaze, I challenge you to affirm yourself in this moment. What's one positive thing that you can say about yourself? Maybe it's a compliment that you get all the time. It could be about your physical, your mental, your spirit. Just grant yourself that affirmation as you continue with your natural breath. Maybe it's a bit more intentional now. Maybe you send a bit more air into your belly, into your chest. And now that you have that affirmation, I'm going to challenge you to think about something negative, something uncomfortable. What does it bring up for you? This is a thought that you've been worried about this week, this month, this year. Have you been allowing it to almost plague you? And on your next exhale, release it. Visualize this word, this phrase, this thought literally releasing from your body, releasing from your mind. And as you come back into that natural breath, go back to your affirmation. Your I am. I am kind. I am honest. I am thoughtful. I am present. It doesn't always have to be this grand thing for you to be accepted, for you to be honored as the human being that you are. It can be something as simple as I am present. I am willing. I am open. Something as simple as giving yourself one affirmation, giving yourself a small moment to just breathe and check in is an act of love, is an act of courage. And you deserve it. And we'll slowly open our eyes and bring our hands to heart center and just give ourselves thanks for being present in this moment.
Namaste.
If you would like to say namaste.
I ruined everything.
You did not ruin it. Release that. Because you ain't ruined nothing. No, ma'am.
Oh my God, that was so good. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you. I do my best to bring the peace.
You have helped me find a lot of peace after some of my abusive encounters. So, yeah, it gets rough over here, y'all.
Yeah.
Could you talk to me about any of your own experiences and how you've been able to find peace?
Child. I didn't know what abuse was other than like, I used to love me some Law and Order. Okay, SVU, it was just like, oh, like you're getting like beat up or like, something as extreme as rape. That's what I saw like violence or abuse as. But my abuse was a mix of both. It was actually only physical once. And I still stayed in that relationship, and then it became emotional abuse. Like to the point where he would call me 40 times in a row, like leave threatening voicemails. Like if I was home alone, I remember one time I drove to a Walmart around the corner because I was scared that he would pop up in my house. And this is still somebody that I'm like dating, but I'm afraid of you.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to leave you because I've seen you react, you know, and put your hands on me. So it's like, just, it felt like a very like torn experience. But what I learned about myself and something I've like had to challenge myself, and my life coach and my therapist challenged me, is like, I had like this, I guess like the complex of I need to save everybody. But it was a distraction from doing my inner work.
Woo!
It was a distraction from, at the time, me facing, my dad has cancer. So I'm gonna just distract myself with this man who I know has a substance abuse problem, who I know doesn't respect women because he has a mother wound, but I can change him, I can help him. No, because he came to my house, drugged up, on Percocets, which I had no idea of until afterwards, intoxicated on liquor, called me out of my name. I asked him to leave my house, he did not want to leave. And that was the first time somebody put their hands on me. Like, I was choked, like lifted off of my feet, thrown onto my bed, like fingers pushed into my face. Like, it was so aggressive, like my jaw was hurting the next day. And then I had a bottle thrown in my face. So I like had a scratch on the top of my lip, which is still a scar. Like that and there are still times like recently where I've looked in the mirror like, I hate this shit. Like, why did I go through this? Like, how much do it cost to get a scar removal? Like, that's like my reality right now, quite honestly. But in that moment, like, I didn't want to tell nobody.
Yeah.
And like, unfortunately, it's something that had happened in my family. So like, one of my cousins actually came to my house the next day, and he was like, "What's on your face?" And I said, "Oh, the cat scratched me." He said, "Ain't no cat do that."
Yeah.
But he knew that because his mom had went through it, and she was telling similar lies. And it was like, it wasn't until like he tried to kick down my door, smash my windshield, where like I had no choice but to tell my parents. And even in that moment, it was like, oh, y'all really do love me.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really always comes back to like self-love, and also feeling that the people around you actually care, but you have to give them the opportunity to.
Yeah.
I wasn't giving anybody the chance to show up for me because I was just, oh, I got it, I can handle it. I'm out here hustling. I'm going to networking events. I'm good. Whole time I'm scared to be in my own house.
Yeah. What is your advice for anyone who's trying to find peace after experiencing abuse?
For me, it was a lot of, I'm a writer. So I wrote a lot of letters to my abuser. I wrote letters to myself to forgive myself. And to, the toughest part is owning your own shit.
Yeah.
Because they didn't do it by themselves. You know, there are cases where you know, we get random attacks and things of that nature, but 9 times out of 10, the flags are there, and we choose to ignore them. Or in my case, it was physically abusive, and I still stayed.
Yeah.
So there's only so much full blame I can give this person. Like, I have to own up to and really search, why did I allow myself to stay in that situation? And that's how you heal, and that's how you prevent it from happening again. You know, when you search, what are the wounds that led me to attract this person and to attach myself to this person? So that like was a big part for me, just like the writing. And honestly, I'm also big on mirror talk, like looking myself in the mirror like, you're okay, I forgive you, we didn't know, you know, we didn't know, and we chose to overlook what we did know, and that's okay, and we made it through.
I feel like it was you that told me to do a video diary.
Oh yeah, I do those.
Yes, you are the first person that told me to do that, and this was after my recent relationship that had an abusive altercation. And I didn't follow your advice the first night you gave it to me. It took me a minute to get to that moment where I could face myself in that way. And then also it's kind of hard to put things into words in that moment.
Yeah.
But I remember when I started to do it, I would challenge myself where in that moment, if I was having some sort of breakdown or just letting my thoughts get ahead of me, I would do a video submission, and then I would challenge myself the next day to do another one in response to that. Like if we could just get through the night or get through the week, just see how we feel, and then talk about how you feel, so that I could see the difference, to remind myself, Jasmine, this was really just a moment.
Yep.
And that next day when I would do the response video, I would always say something like, me just being goofy, like, you a badass bitch, Jasmine. Like,
and you are.
That man is gonna miss you, he's gonna regret it, like, you know, and then putting myself in those moments where I would have a breakdown again, and watching those videos, it was helpful. And then I was able to track my growth. But the hardest video was the first one that I did, because I didn't have a response video for me to feel some sense of motivation for. And I remember particularly saying in that video that I felt worthless, and I felt like I deserved what he did to me. Because there were so many other smaller forms of abuse and just micro traumas throughout that relationship, where he was doing it loud and clear. He was being very obvious with it, and I was just ignoring it or perceiving it as something else. Like, oh, he's trying to push me away because he wants for me to like really show him that I love it. Like, I'm even saying it out loud is like, what? But in my mind, like, I was being a good girlfriend by not leaving you, because you've told me that like you've never experienced love growing up. So you push people away when you don't want to. So I have to stay here even though you're pushing me away. And I remember in that first video submission, I said, like, I feel like I deserved it. And as hurt as I am, and as much as I'm healing from this, like, I'm not really mad at him for doing it to me. I'm mad that people knew about it, so now I have to leave him alone. Yeah,
that's the truth.
That really sucks to face that, because even if people didn't know, I should want that for myself, to get away from someone who would do something so terrible.
Comfortable in discomfort.
Yeah,
especially because I think that goes back to our personalities. It's like, I done put all this time and energy in this. I ain't walking away.
I did not want to walk away.
That's how
and
it is.
I know, even as tumultuous as our relationship got, he's learned from it, maybe even a little bit now. And whatever life takes him to the next woman, she's gonna reap a lot from what he's learned from me.
Yeah.
But I did not want to leave, and that was embarrassing to admit that I felt that way. And it became very real when you and Milan came to my house that next day. And it was like, before I could even say what happened, y'all saw it. Yeah. Like on my face, on my arms, on my neck. So it was like, regardless of what you tell us to explain and give contextual support, leave him alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I also knew, like, you needed time.
Yeah.
I was with that man for a whole year after that. It's not, I think, like, domestic violence survivors, like, we often do go back.
Yeah.
That is a big thing, like, especially when children are involved, like, that's common, unfortunately. But it's like, especially like 9 times out of 10, when there is physical violence, there is some mental manipulation. So you feel like nobody else is gonna want me.
Yeah.
It's my fault. I could have been better. Maybe I shouldn't have talked to him this way. Like, I was very delusional afterwards. Like, I had roommates, you know, who were like, you still letting this man come over here?
Yeah.
Because we're together and he loves me and we're gonna make it. Like, it was even like, you know, like my cousin and my brother would come over, and like, it was at one point before things got bad. One day my cousin was like, he just looked dark. Like, he just looks like it's a black cloud over him. But I knew, like, I was like, well, he's just been drinking. Like, but even that, like, girl, you don't smoke cigarettes. This man smokes cigarettes. He drinks 3 beers every day after work.
We make up excuses for the most toxic people. And
it just, you would never think that I would be dating somebody like that. Like, but for me, it was just like, no, but I don't know what the butt was. I don't know what the butt was, other than it was a distraction for me. It was something else to cover up the pain of my dad is dying, to cover up the pain of like, I thought I was gonna come home and get closer to the man that created me, and I don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go lean on this. But yeah, it takes time to release that mental hold is very serious.
Yeah. Before we close, do you have any advice for someone who might still be stuck in any form of an abusive relationship, or someone who's recently gotten out of that?
Ooh, which one do I start with? If you are stuck, one, you're not stuck.
Yeah.
The hard truth is that you're making a choice to stay. And that's where like you have to tell yourself, I have the power to go from victim to survivor. I think that we play this game with ourselves of like, I'm a victim or I deserved it. And it's like, no, neither of those are true. Like you can choose to be a survivor and remove yourself from this. You can choose to transform your life. Like, again, what I said before, you get to live every single day. That means you get a chance to create the life that you truly want for yourself every single day. So you have that choice. And for those that are just getting out of it, you gotta pat yourself on the back for making that choice.
Yeah.
Thank yourself every day for removing yourself from that situation, and like just continue to honor yourself.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done. And it just goes back to a day at a time. What's some small token you can give to yourself when the negative thought comes up? Or what can you replace with I need to call him. I'm thinking about calling him. I'm thinking about that. Okay, what can we do to replace that? When that thought comes up, what are we gonna do instead? Are we gonna open a book? Are we gonna do some squats? You wanna be thick? You gonna do some squats? So something else to replace that automatic response that you've always done, I think is very powerful when you're just stepping out of that habitual negative cycle.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
love you.
I love you. Friends. Okay.